Welcome into another episode of Tailgate Talk SEC. I am Will Thomas, and today what I wanted to do is go through all of the SEC postseason awards that they give out and predict how they're each going to end up. Now, this is just a fun little thing to really project who's going to really be the best of the best in this conference. Not just team-wise, right? Because we've been projecting who's going to be the best team, who can win the conference, make the playoff, win the Natty all summer long. Let's focus more on these individual guys, these individual players, and see who can really rise to the top of this league. Now, before we get into it, I've been doing this college football content every single day. It's been so much fun. And as we get closer to the season, even closer than we already are, and we get into kickoff, I'll be pumping out so much content. I love doing this. It's my favorite sport on the planet. So if you have been enjoying it and you want daily SEC football content, follow me on Twitter at Will Thomas CFB and everywhere else at Tailgate Talk SEC. I appreciate it so much, and it helps me out a ton. So let's get straight into it. We got 6 awards here that I'm going through. Offensive Player of the Year, Defense, Special Teams, Freshman of the Year, Newcomer of the Year, and Coach of the Year. So we're just going to go through all 6 of those real quick. I'll give some notes on each guy and why I've picked them. Starting off with the Offensive Player of the Year, I'm going Trinidad Chambliss, quarterback, Ole Miss. Now, this is not that hot of a take, but if you have been following me for a little bit and you've been paying attention, you know that my Heisman pick is more Arch Manning than it is Trinidad Chambliss. But I have Trinidad as the Offensive Player of the Year in the SEC over Arch. Now, the reason why I have that is because I don't think this is the right way to do this, but the Heisman, it is skewed towards the player on the better team. I think Chambliss could throw for 200 more yards, maybe, the same touchdowns and 2 less picks. But if Manning has Texas 11-1 going to the playoff and Ole Miss is 9-3 on the bubble, maybe not in the playoff, I think that will be the difference in who gets the Heisman. So I think because Texas might be better than Ole Miss, I have Arch maybe as my Heisman. But in terms of just numbers and Offensive Player of the Year in the SEC, I like Chambliss. Now, he's probably the most electrifying player in the country, right? Just coming out of nowhere last season and playing as good as he did. He loses Lane Kiffin and he loses Charlie Weis, but while I do believe that could maybe hurt the offense as a whole in certain situations this year, I don't think you're going to look at Chambliss and say, this guy's a different quarterback. What happened to that kid who was running around last year terrorizing the SEC? Now, some potential concerns for Trinidad, does the league, the SEC as a whole, adjust to him in year 2? Right? It's not his sophomore season, but the term sophomore slump could still apply to his second year in the league. And like I said, with the coaching changes, how does that affect him? I think Chambliss is kind of, circumstance proof. Almost, I think he's just that good of a player. And he's surrounded by enough weapons on that Ole Miss offense where it should still click very well. Chambliss should still be one of the most electric, dynamic, and productive quarterbacks, not just in the SEC, but in the entire country. So I have Trinidad Chambliss winning the Offensive Player of the Year in the SEC this fall. Then moving on to defense, I got Colin Simmons coming off the edge at Texas. Now, he's just an absolute monster, right? And he's been a monster for the years he's already been in Austin. He got that number 1 last year for the Longhorns, but before, last season, that means something as an edge rusher to earn that number. He's just a menace, right? He might be the best pure pass rusher that we have in the entire country. And that Texas defensive line as a whole is stacked. That front 7 is loaded. So what that tells me for Simmons, too, is that it's been the case for the other years as well, but he has help on that D-line. So I'll compare it to Dylan Stewart at South Carolina. Right, his freshman year, he's an elite pass rusher. He had help his freshman year from guys like Kyle Kennard, so he was able to be in one-on-one situations and get home. Last year, he didn't have that help. It was really Dylan Stewart and what else? And his numbers went down. That's not necessarily because Stewart was a worse player, but he didn't have anybody who was taking attention so O-lines could focus on him. O-lines can't just focus on Colin Simmons because then they will get beat by the other 4 and 5 stars that the Horns have on their defensive line. So Simmons is obviously in a great situation being on the defense that he's in. I think having Will Muschamp and Mark Stoops now on staff there for that defense is going to just help Simmons with his physicality, with his pass rush plan, with his attitude and mentality. And not that he needed that help per se, but it's just going to be a big-time boost towards maybe adding another sack to his record. Maybe he can get home and force a fumble, get a strip sack, force a big-time turnover 1 or 2 more times this season. I think the Longhorns defense as a whole could be one of the best in the entire country, right? Talent-wise, that's pretty easy to say, but I think that with the coaching changes, the coaching adds, that's bolstered even more, and Simmons is going to be a driving force of that, so I have Colin Simmons probably leading the conference in sacks and winning Defensive Player of the Year, taking it from Cassius Howell at A&M, who did it last season with the Aggies. Special Teams Player of the Year. Last year, this was Tate Sandell. I think it goes to the other best kicker in the SEC this season in Lucas Carnero. I mean, he was absolute nails for Ole Miss, especially in the playoff last season. He was 31 of 35 on field goals. From 50 plus, he was 5 of 7. That's a really good rating. A long of 58, so he was absolutely booming a couple of those kicks. And between him and Sandell, that's where I was for this award again. If you look back at the playoffs last season, right? I mean, Sandell. He's an elite kicker. He was drilling clutch kicks all throughout the regular season. That game against Tennessee was crazy. He had in that playoff game against Alabama, he was shaky. He missed a bunny. Carnero, when he was in the playoffs against Georgia in that Sugar Bowl, he was drilling things into the all-state hands with no doubt. I think Carnero might just have that clutch gene a little more than Sandell has. Obviously, I believe the Ole Miss offense will be scoring a bunch of points, so we'll have plenty of opportunities for extra points and field goals just being in plus territory. So give me Carnero in his senior season to win Special Teams Player of the Year, the second Ole Miss player on this list. Freshman of the Year. This one's pretty fun. It's a lot of conjecture. This is probably one of the hardest ones to predict. This is a newcomer. But once again, if you have tracked what I've been doing this summer, you know how excited I am about Zadarian Morgan at Alabama. He was a top 5 receiver in this last year's recruiting cycle. He's from Alexander City, Alabama, which is a local kid. Big-time Bama pipeline there. He's 6'4", 210. Now, that is pretty good size for a receiver. It doesn't blow you away just on the surface level, but he's a true freshman. He's the biggest guy in the Bama receiver room. Among guys like Ryan Williams, Noah Rogers, even though he's hurt, he's got size on him. So you're looking at this Bama receiver room, there's plenty of talent. Morgan's the most physically ready guy already. As a true freshman, he's been blowing people away in camp. He's going to immediately have really good playing time. And I just look at what Ryan Coleman Williams was able to do when he was a freshman, and I don't see why Ced Morgan can't do that same thing. Right? It's a Bama receiver room that returns, Ryan Williams, Latsir Brooks. You have Noah Rogers there in the portal as well. They kind of all struggled with drops last year. And I do believe that gets cleaned up. But what it tells me, too, is that this Bama receiver room, it's not wide open, but there's room for someone who can be a dynamic, more consistent playmaker to fit in there. I think Ced Morgan can do that. And I also believe that Keelan Russell is going to win this job for Alabama. They have had a dynamic connection, have Russell and Zadarian Morgan. We saw it at A-Day in their spring game. We've been seeing it all camp long. I think that Ced Morgan is already one of the best athletes in the entire country. That's how highly I think of this kid. And he's at a place in an offense under a coach where we've already seen a true freshman wide receiver obliterate everybody else in the country. So I think Zadarian Morgan is going to win Freshman of the Year. What's funny is that his running back, E.J. Crowell, could also win that. Keelan Russell, I don't really know the eligibility rules on Freshman of the Year, but maybe he's in the running for it too. The young talent on Bama's offense is just absurd, but I think Ced Morgan is the best of the bunch. Newcomer of the Year. Now, this award's only been handed out twice. It was brand new in 2024. Diego Pavia won it in 24, and then last year it was split between Trinidad Chambliss and Ahmad Hardy. So I'm looking at that, and I'm hearing it's a transfer player at a skill position on offense. So that narrows down the list pretty well, right? If you have a high-profile transfer quarterback, you're probably like them to win this award. Not really a defender, not really a freshman. I went with Kenny Minchey at Kentucky. Now, it was hard for me to not do Sam Leavitt at LSU, just because LSU is going to be better than Kentucky, right? And the ceiling is probably higher for Leavitt just in terms of overall production because of how elite his weapons are. He'll just probably have more games to play to stack up numbers. I'm a massive believer in Kenny Minchey and Wilson at Kentucky, man. And it sounds weird to say, but I think I have less questions about Minchey at Kentucky than I do Leavitt at LSU. And a lot of it's health-related. We saw Sam Leavitt kind of quit on ASU last year when he was beat up and the team was out of it. I just don't really know what that looks like in a team full of mercenaries in Baton Rouge. But for Kenny Minchey at Kentucky, just focusing on this here, he was step for step with C.J. Carr to win that job in Notre Dame last year. Right? I mean, Carr just barely was able to win that job. And C.J. is a Heisman favorite, one of the best quarterbacks in the country. So Kenny Minchey is also a really damn good quarterback. And now he's in a situation with Will Stein, who is an incredible offensive mind. The Kentucky offense, C.J. Baxter at running back, just a former five-star guy. You have a bunch of portal and receiver talent like Nick Anderson, Shane Carr. DJ Moore is back for his sophomore season after an electric year last year. Kentucky's offense, I think, is going to be very good. A lot better than a lot of people think. And what that's going to do is really open it up for Kenny Minchey because of the personnel he has around him and just the scheme he's going to be in to really just air it out and have a really good year. So will he be the best quarterback in the SEC? No, but I don't need him to be to win newcomer of the year. I just need him to be better than effectively, right, Sam Levitt, right? Or maybe a transfer running back pops up out of nowhere. But I like Kenny Minchey to win newcomer of the year in the SEC this fall. And then finally, coach of the year, I'm going with who I think the best team in the league is going to be, and that's Steve Sarkisian and the Texas Longhorns. Now, I mean, coach of the year last year was Clark Lee, which obviously made a ton of sense because of what he was able to do with Vandy, coming from what Vandy was to 10-2. I don't know if I see a team making that kind of jump, right? Like Mississippi State, I don't think makes that jump. Arkansas, I don't think makes that jump. So then I'm looking at, all right, coach of the year probably just goes to the winner of the SEC and the best team in the conference. And to me, that's Texas. Now, the logic that, it's Georgia till it isn't makes a lot of sense to me. And people who are picking Georgia, I have absolutely zero, like, what are you talking about? It's Kirby Smart. It's the Dogs. It's hard to pick against them. I just look at this Texas team, their overall roster talent, just who they are as a squad. The fact that this kind of has to be the year, right? This is a no excuses year for Sark, for Texas because of their investment. Right now, you're into year 2 of Arch Manning. You brought in Cam Coleman. You have all these defensive ads. This is the year for Texas. It has to be. It just has to be. And I think that it will be. So I've got Steve Sarkisian winning Coach of the Year with the Horns, winning the SEC. And in my opinion, they are my pick to go win the national championship. So that'll do it for my 6 SEC award predictions. Obviously, let me know your guys' down in the comments. I'm sure there's going to be a ton of good debate because there are so many elite players at all of these spots in the SEC. Tons of great coaches who could also earn that Coach of the Year award. So thank you so much for watching this episode. Like I said before, if you do want daily college football content, I'll be doing this the entire fall, the entire season. So follow me on Twitter down there. Subscribe to me here. Follow me on TikTok, everywhere else at Tailgate Talk SEC. I've been Will Thomas, and I will see you next time.